Silver is having an immediate reaction to the latest news, and it just goes to show you how sensitive the price is and why it's very difficult to predict. But we'll try to make sense of it all in this video as we explore. Here on this Memorial Day, we are seeing moves to the downside for both gold and silver. Silver getting affected a little bit less, which is understandable considering what's happening with gold. In midday trading, gold is down $20.10. That's a sixth of a percentage point, down to $3,338.80. Silver is down a fourth of a percentage point, down 13 cents right now. It was down almost 20 cents earlier in the morning to $33.44, below that critical $33.50 level, but still above 33. And, the markets are closed here in the United States, but, the world is noticing this latest news that I'm going to share with you now, as silver has pulled back now from a 1-month high, as U.S. President Donald Trump set a July 9th deadline for reaching a trade agreement with the EU. That's right. I'm going to go into detail about that here in a moment. But during times like this, when we're seeing the market move so dramatically and so quickly, although it's not that big of a drop in terms of price, but it's the fact that it is reacting so quickly to this news in the world markets tells us that the ride is not over and that dips provide opportunities to purchase precious metals. And Summit Metals is a channel sponsor, and I would encourage you to check them out, see what they've got. They've got a lot of good services as well as competitive prices. So check them out. Elevate your wealth with Summit Metals. Buckle up is a headline from CNBC. The ride's far from over as Trump's EU tariffs delay is no guarantee that trade tensions won't escalate. And that means, folks, watch out, because when there's volatility with trade issues and the trade war, which we are in, the salvos of which have been launched again just late last week. But nonetheless, it's far from over, which means there's going to be volatility in the overall markets as well as the precious metal markets. And it is a trade war. But what about real war? Today is Memorial Day, and we honor the sacrifices of those who have put their lives on the line, and not just those who have lost their lives, but the family members of those who've lost their lives. The coins that you see here are from a battle of long ago, a war of the War of 1812, which lasted from 1812 to about early 1815, and it was against the British. And of course, those who fought and died in that war, this represents it, from the Star-Spangled Banner, and it just gives you a sense of how much pride we have in our nation and in our flag that represents the sacrifice of those who paid the ultimate to die for us for our freedom. And that's what it's about, folks. We would not have a country today if we didn't have the resiliency of a military that gives us so much sacrifice. Today is one of those days when we honor the sacrifice of those. We memorialize those who passed before us in defense of this great nation. So if you have served in the military or are serving, I want to thank you for your service. And I want to thank you for the sacrifice of those who have fought in our wars. And of course, there's different viewpoints on what wars were just and what wars were not. But the vast majority of them, from World War II, World War I, and many different battles and that have taken place where men and women have died in defense of this country. So we honor you. We thank you for your service. And so this is something that we're seeing now with the trade war, with hopefully we'll come to resolution, but it looks like it's going to be a summer that is going to be quite volatile. Now, these delays now have brought the metals down. So what happened here? Well, investors certainly are prepared for what's going to be coming with more volatility. Trump did just yesterday, that he had agreed to push the rollout of the punitive import duties back to the 9th of July, following a call with the EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. The president had initially called for a 50% tariff on EU goods to begin on June the 1st. He accused the bloc in a social media post of being very difficult to deal with, and said that trade negotiations with the EU were going nowhere, he says. European stocks rebounded on Monday morning, moving into positive territory after previously sinking on Friday in response to Trump's fresh tariff threats. And so now it looks like the president, von Leyen, said in a post on X over the weekend that the EU was ready to advance talks swiftly and decisively. The EU and U.S. share the world's most consequential and close trade relationships, she said. To reach a good deal, we would need the time until July the 9th. So he gave her that. So there it is. So there is something about this. There's a lot of shock tactics, they say, that what's happening here, and that rattles the markets throughout for sure. And but it seems like, when you've got a tough negotiator, well, typically things happen, and they can happen very quickly, especially if you're prepared to make a drastic move. It sounds like that's what Trump is willing to do here. And so that's brought them back to the negotiating table. Now, there's other factors as well, too, but this is what is bringing the price of silver down today. And again, not by much. It's down 15 cents now, but enough to put the world on notice and the markets on notice, for sure. And so we're going to see times like this, and I think we're going to see the silver market perhaps get rattled even more. Now, the one good thing about this is the American markets appear not to be open today, and so therefore, when that is the case, it doesn't seem to have as dramatic of an impact. My guess is probably these metals would move even further down had the markets been open today. And so that is pretty interesting. And fascinating. So we'll see how this plays out. It's an amazing thing to see. And I tell you, what I'm going to be doing is watching very closely, but to see if it breaks through $33 an ounce. If it breaks through $33 an ounce down to the downside, then we have to look back at 32.50 again, which was the last resistance point. So we'll see. But fascinating, and let me know what your thoughts are. And we have to be under the reality of, and recognize the reality of the situation with silver, that indeed will be affected pretty dramatically, and usually it's to the downside. It seems like whenever we see moves like this, that are quote positive economic news. But in due course, I think it's going to come back around as demand picks up for silver. And I think, in a sense, that no matter what happens, we're going to see, at least with regards to tariffs, and the amount of demand for silver is going to take place independently throughout, notwithstanding in connection with maybe some of the supply chains where there may be less imports because of tariffs. We'll see silver demand pick up domestically here in the United States, as well as in China and other high consumers of silver for products and goods and services. And so that is something that is going to likely continue, at least to the point to put strain on the supply to some effect. I believe that is now cementing itself to be a reality as we head into the summer months and into the end of the year. Barring any huge, massive recession, which is a possibility too, that could be global, and that could actually, I think, hurt silver's price. Barring something like that, I think that if we see some hiccups with tariffs and and decrease in imports or what have you, I think that you're going to see a siloing sort of effect in terms of demand in domestic markets. In other words, China, the European Union, and otherwise, and other places, because it's not just trade between the United States and the world. There's trade between the EU and other countries, and of course you have the BRICS and other areas and other factors. In other words, I feel pretty good about silver's situation right now, and like I said, every day where silver's above $33 an ounce is a good day. And I want to say probably in the bid price. There's now 12 cents worth of difference between bid and ask for the silver market right now. So if silver can remain above $33 in the bid price, that is a very good thing. And I would say that we are starting to see ourselves develop support for the metal. So there you have it. Well, there's your mid-day market report, a rare occasion here on this channel, but I like to bring you the latest news in the world of precious metals. So if you enjoy what I do here, I want to encourage you to please subscribe to the channel and follow the content by pressing the notifications bell so that you can be apprised of the latest information as it makes its way across your device. And with that being said, I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.